Which games are must bets for week 15 of the 2023 NFL season? What's going on, BLV football fans and gridiron gamblers? It's Mitch here, back with another week of my NFL best bets, my favorite picks versus the spread, where I help you win some money each week here on the Bottom Line View. If that sounds good, don't forget to spike the like button and subscribe for weekly NFL best bets just like this. Last week, 3-2, 60% on the season. We're sitting around 55%. And over the last 2 weeks, we are 8-3. Back on a heater here on the BLV. So let's continue that with my first pick of week 15. I have the New York Jets getting 8.5 points on the road at the Miami Dolphins. And this is going to begin a bit of a theme for me in this video and within these best bets. I will be taking points this week, but I'm also looking at teams that are healthier versus teams that are beat up. And I do think injuries especially matter in December football. And that begins with our breakdown of Miami and New York. These two teams played on Black Friday. I'm not sure if you remember, but the game was really competitive in the first half until Tim Boyle, who might be the worst quarterback I've ever seen, and I've made quite a bit of money fading him this year, threw the ball to Javon Holland for a pick six. That really was the story of the game, because you may not remember that Tua was throwing the ball to the New York Jets in the first half. And I think there's a chance he could do it again. Now, this game is in Miami and not New York. But the Jets defense matches up really well with the Miami offense in this game when you consider that Miami at left tackle, Teron Armstead, injured. Right guard, Robert Hunt, injured. And center, Connor Williams, on IR. Those are their three best offensive linemen, and they might all miss the game versus the Jets. That is not the right opponent to be missing your offensive line. The Jets have a top 3 defense, in my opinion, in the NFL right now. And while I have had issues with people comparing them to the 85 Bears, and I have had issues at times with their run defense, those are nitpicks. And really, when you think about it, Miami had their success running the ball against the Jets in that game the first time around. But that was with a healthier offensive line, with Connor Williams, with Teron Armstead. And without those guys, they won't have the push up front to be able to create those lanes for Raheem Mostert and company at running back. I actually think that the Jets front dominates this game, similarly to how we saw Tennessee dominate that game. Remember, Miami actually was given points not once but twice against the Titans at home and couldn't even beat the Tennessee Titans. The New York Jets have a much more dominant front, especially considering the Titans didn't have Jeff Simmons. The Jets have an elite secondary, fully healthy, Sauce Gardner and DJ Reed, one of the lone cornerback duos that can actually withstand an attack of Jalen Waddle and Tyreek Hill. They have a fast linebacker group with Quincy Williams and CJ Mosley, who are very good at the horizontal runs and defending those that Miami likes to feature. I can't see Miami running or throwing all over the elite Jet defense. I think the Jets defense keeps them in this game. You're giving me 8.5. And then you're talking about Zach Wilson, who played maybe the best game of his entire NFL career last week in the rain against the Houston Texans. A defense that isn't horrible, and he was throwing the ball extremely well, controlling the ball extremely well, accurately. He felt confident. And it feels like the Jets' offensive line has actually gotten a little bit better, improved a little bit. Breece Hall is dangerous. Garrett Wilson is going to catch 8 to 10 passes here. And I thought we saw a lot of susceptible spots for Miami's defense when they didn't have Javon Holland at safety, when they didn't have Jerome Baker at linebacker, when they didn't have Jalen Phillips in the front seven. Those players likely aren't going to play once again in this game. I actually think that Zach Wilson continues playing well. He hasn't really been turning it over, unlike Tim Boyle. And I feel he's going to make a few plays with his legs, with his arm. Like, I actually am buying into what we saw against the Texans more than a lot of other people. But mostly, this has to do with the mismatch of the Jets' defensive line facing the offensive line of Miami, with a quarterback behind that offensive line in Tua that's susceptible to sacking himself and throwing the ball to the other team. But then you give me the added bonus of no Tim Boyle. You give me Zach Wilson, a functional quarterback in the NFL that actually has some skill. I think the Jets might even win this game. I love the 8.5. You're getting a full touchdown plus a 2-point conversion. So as long as this is a one-score game, you win this bet. I think the Dolphins are reeling. They're extremely injured on both sides of the ball. This is an AFC East matchup, the second of the year. These games are typically tight. I will take the Jets plus 8.5. My second best bet for week number 15. This was a late addition to the card, but I've always kind of liked it all week. The Chicago Bears plus 3.5. Now I want to make that certain. 3.5. At 3, I have my dilemmas in terms of Cleveland's the favorite. Cleveland's at home. They've been very good at home. And they've played better on offense with Joe Flacco. Those are all facts. But when I went a little deeper into this game and into this matchup, everything about this game says Chicago could win this game, even in Cleveland. But I love the hook with a total of 38 and a half. It's going to be a low-scoring game between two really good defenses. Yes, Chicago has a really good defense right now, one of the best in football, and they're healthy. The only guy they're really missing is Yannick Ngakoue. They have the two linebackers in the middle with Edwards and Edmonds. They've got Walker on the edge, along with Montez Sweat, who has really transformed this front seven. And then the secondary has Eddie Jackson, Jaquan Brisker, and Jalen Johnson, who's been one of the best corners in football. And this guy can lock down Amari Cooper. They have the speed and coverage ability at linebacker to lock down David Njoku and react quickly to the screen game of the Browns that's so important. And Chicago has been one of the 3 best run defenses in football, which is really the way Cleveland likes to move the football. And what I really like about this matchup for Chicago's defense is the fact that the Browns will be on their 4th and 5th string tackles at left tackle and right tackle. That's right. The 2 starting right tackles, Conklin and Jones, are on IR and out. So they're on their 3rd right tackle. Jedrick Wills also out, which means they're on their 2nd string left tackle. That is crazy. So the Browns, their big advantage, offensive line play. Bitonio also a little banged up with ribs, I believe. So this is an offensive line that's beat up, won't really be able to get the push, won't really be able to protect Joe Flacco to the degree against this good Bears front. So I worry about Flacco in the pocket because he's not elusive. So when they drop back on 3rd down or 2nd and long, when they can't run the ball as well, it's going to be difficult for Joe Flacco here, and it's going to take the Browns out of a play-action script if they're constantly only running for a couple yards on 1st down. I really like the Bears defense and how they're playing. They're turning the football over. They're shutting teams out. They're playing dominant coverage in the back end against even really good offenses like the Lions, who are built similarly to Cleveland, but just with more skill. So I love that matchup. And then on the other side, you've got a healthy offensive line for Chicago. You've got a healthy offense for the most part for Chicago. Cole Kmet, DJ Moore, Darnell Mooney. You've got enough playmakers to make some plays against man coverage that Cleveland often features. Plus, Cleveland is heavily beat up on defense. Maurice Hurst went on IR. They have a guy, Elliott, I believe, in concussion protocol. They just put their third string defensive end on IR. They have Juan Thornhill, on injury report. So he is beat up. And Denzel Ward has been playing through injury. They have a lot of injuries on defense. I think Justin Fields' mobility will allow him to escape negative plays. He's been protecting the ball, and he also is capable of making explosive throws down the field when the Browns do gamble. I think the Bears probably won't have to score a ton, but I think they can make enough happen here with guys like DJ Moore and their run game, which is pretty good as well, and they'll definitely test the interior defensive line of the Browns given their injuries. So I think the Bears are a good play here. They're a healthy team. They're an ascending team. I don't think that Vegas quite knows how to value them right now because of how well they're playing, but what they previously were. So this is a lot of like trending sort of deal, and the Browns with a lot of injuries. So I like Chicago plus 3.5. This was actually going to be my Patriots, my second pick. But since the spread moved so much, moved from like 9 to 7.5, I'm going with the Bears here, and I actually really like it a lot. I think this is definitely a top 5 pick for me this week. Bears plus 3.5 on the road at the Browns. My third best bet for week number 15, I'm going to take the New York Giants. Yes, that's right, the G-Men, plus 6 at the New Orleans Saints. First of all, this is a number, right? I'm not necessarily playing the Giants. I'm playing a number, and I'm also fading the Saints. The Saints are not that good. The Saints have constantly been overvalued by the books, and they've constantly been a team that has not been covering spreads or really playing up to expectation. Last week, they were able to escape from Carolina, but they actually didn't look as good as the final score indicated last week. They have a lot of injuries, specifically big-time players on defense. Marcus May, Marshawn Lattimore in the secondary. They've got defensive tackles that have been put on IR. This is a defense that is not the same. Their pass rush, not the same. I'm not necessarily really worried about the Giants protecting from the Saints pass rush. It's not like it used to be. And I do think Saquon can run the football here and keep the Saints at bay. I also believe that the Giants offense might be the most undervalued unit in the NFL right now, other than the Bears defense. I think the Giants have found a formula. Tommy DeVito running a little bit, using his legs, play action, getting outside the pocket, running the football, a little bit of screen RPO action, and then just Brian Daboll figuring out who is playing well. And that's Wan'Dale Robinson, Darius Slayton, and Jalen Hyatt at wide receiver. And he's really doing a good job of setting Tommy DeVito up for success. DeVito's not really turning it over much, and he's running really well, which is something that the Saints struggle with, mobile quarterbacks. So I actually think the Saints offensively are the Giants offensively are surprisingly trending upward. Even without Daniel Jones and even with the lack of weaponry, they've been pretty good. So I'm looking forward to the Giants playing a little bit of an overrated defense in the Saints. And then on the flip side, what I love about this game for the Giants is their defensive matchup in terms of tendency versus Derek Carr. Wink Martindale is a heavy blitz coordinator that really can get after Derek Carr and pressure the middle of the pocket. And what Derek Carr hates is people around him, people at his feet, having to make plays off platform without set feet. I could see Derek Carr throwing some dangerous passes here, potentially interceptions. He's a check down Charlie, and I could see Wink Martindale really baiting him into some check downs early, rally, tackle. I think the Giants secondary is playing a lot better than people give them credit for, especially in man coverage. And Dexter Lawrence is back, and he's a game wrecker that the Saints will have to deal with. The Giants as well up front are a lot better than I think a lot of people give them credit for in terms of their pass rush and their overall defense. I think the Giants defense has been playing better as of late. I think their offense has been playing better as of late. This is not the same team we saw early in the year. Saints are beat up. Saints are not very good in my opinion. Derek Carr doesn't even really have the faith of his teammates. There's some disruption and some dysfunction there. And the Giants are riding high, and they really believe in this young Tommy DeVito character. So I'm going to take the G-Men plus 6. I just think this is too big of a number for where the two teams are at in terms of their states of play. My fourth best bet of week number 15, I like the Rams. I like the Rams minus 6.5 at home versus the Washington Commanders. I specifically like the number. I feel like with this game, probably being a little bit higher scoring. There is a pretty high total. I believe it's sitting around 48. Don't quote me on that, but I think it's pretty high for a 2023 NFL game. The Rams are going to score, and everyone knows it, right? The Rams are at home. It's perfect environment. Washington's defense stinks. One thing about Washington's defense that doesn't suit up well here is they play a lot of man coverage, and they're not very good at it. And Ron Rivera is not a very good coach. He's not really going to adjust. And you have Cooper Kupp, Nakua, and even Demarcus Robinson playing against these cornerbacks, and it's going to be a terror because Matthew Stafford's hitting everything. He's on fire. His accuracy is insane. And his ability to put receivers against man coverage specifically where they need to be and throw them open is at an elite level right now. He's one of the best in the game at that. And guys like Cooper Kupp and Nakua, I can't see them being covered. I could see them both going for 100 yards in this game if the Commanders play the way they've been playing. We've seen good offenses run away from the Commanders in the past this season. I could see the same here with the Rams. And what I'm really impressed with the Rams offense, Sean McVay's play calling in terms of the balance, running, passing, screens, play action, everything is flowing for the Rams. And they're playing like a top 5 offense right now with a really good quarterback and elite receiving core. And then the defense, yeah, I have respect for Sam Howell, what he's done this year. Eric Bieniemy coming off a bye, that's interesting to me. But Washington's offensive line is lousy. It's one of the worst in the league. Sam Howell takes a lot of sacks, and he's playing Aaron Donald and a pretty underrated front seven of the Rams. I also think the Rams are just good at like forcing you to take field goals, forcing you to convert fourth downs. And overall, the Rams are just a much better coach team overall. They have a better quarterback. They have a better skill group. They have a better team. And this Rams team overall could be one that enters the NFC playoffs, which they need this win to do. That's another reason to take the Rams. And they could surprise because of it. So I think the Rams take care of business here. They might not win by like double digits, but all they have to do is win by 7, because this is just sitting at 6.5, which sort of protects you from a lot of backdoor scenarios. So give me the Rams minus 6.5. As long as it's under 7, love the Rams here. And my 5th and final best bet of week number 15. I'm going to take the Baltimore Ravens in a primetime game at the Jacksonville Jags. While I don't typically like taking the away team on the road in a primetime setting, I feel like the Ravens, this is built for them to win this game. They're coming off a game where they survived at home against the Rams, and they played amazing on offense. And I could see that replicating in this game. The Baltimore offense is playing really well, and I feel like after the bye, they're just going to continue to cook and trend upward, right? Before the bye, they couldn't quite figure out, okay, Mark Andrews is out. What do we do now without Mark Andrews? And since then, Isaiah Likely has become involved. Odell just keeps playing better and better and better and better. It's like, he's had these knee injuries, but the more he plays, the better he gets. We also saw that off his last knee injury when he was with the Rams, and he was actually at his peak in the Super Bowl, and then he ends up getting hurt again. That's what we're seeing from Odell. Like, he's double moving people. He's running slants and going for 6. Like, Zay Flowers is electric with screens, with handoffs down the field. Lamar is playing top 3 football at the quarterback position, MVP football. They're running the ball well. Like, Jacksonville's defense got shredded against Cincinnati and Burrow, or not Burrow, the backup, Jake Browning, not even Joe Burrow. And then the Cleveland Browns actually had a pretty good offensive day as well against Jacksonville. And the Browns don't have nearly the arsenal or the quarterback that the Ravens do. So even if there's rain, that might even be better for the Ravens because they can run the football. You look at Jacksonville's defense, they've been without Andre Sisco, who's a really underrated safety for them. What am I messing these names up? CJ Henderson was the bust of a draft pick. Tyson Campbell, my bad, is the corner I'm talking about. Campbell is a really good player. And without him, they don't really have one guy they can count on in coverage. Darius Williams is good, but he's more of a number 2 and benefits from the number 1, right? So I feel like the Ravens can run it. The Ravens can throw it. You got to deal with the dimension of Lamar. And it feels like the Ravens are just clicking with what they want to do on offense. Defensively, Baltimore's coming off their worst game of the season, in my opinion. They did get shredded by the Rams. I talked about how good the Rams are on offense. The Jacksonville Jags are nowhere close to that, in my opinion. They don't have nearly as good of an offensive line, nearly as good of a scheme. They can't run the ball the way the Rams can, which is how you need to attack Baltimore to keep them off the field and to stay in the game. Baltimore is actually weak against the run, but really good against the pass. And that is beneficial against Trevor Lawrence. Trevor Lawrence is also lacking mobility, isn't really the same 100%. He still can move a little bit, but not quite the guy that he was pre-injury. Christian Kirk, his go-to option, is injured. And the Ravens have a really good secondary, right? And they're very complex. They're very creative. Lawrence is a guy that if a guy isn't open, he tends to hold the ball. That could bring pressure against a really bad offensive line. I think the Ravens are going to have a bounce-back defensive performance here as well, especially if it's raining, where it will hinder the downfield strikes from Trevor Lawrence. And it will only benefit a running-style, athletic quarterback like Lamar Jackson. So I just think these two teams are at different levels. Like, Jags, when they're fully healthy, yeah, maybe you buy into them giving the Ravens a game. But the Ravens, the way they're playing on offense, what they're capable on defense, if they play their A-plus game, this could be a blowout. So I like the Ravens -3 as my final pick of week number 15. Thank you guys so much for watching. If you enjoyed, spike the like button. Don't forget to subscribe. It's Mitch of the BLV. Let me know your bets in the comment section below. Peace.